Welcome to week 3 of month 2. If this is your first time joining, this video is part of a 12-month healing series. Each month focuses on a different layer of mind, body, spirit alignment. You're welcome to walk the whole year with us or simply take what you need today. Today, we will be doing some reflection and journaling related to where agency was quietly surrendered. Now, by the time we reach this point in the month, many people notice something subtle. They don't just feel more choice, they also begin to see where choice disappeared. Not dramatically, not all at once, but quietly. This week is about reflection, not to judge or fix, but to understand how agency was gradually surrendered in the first place. Because you cannot reclaim agency sustainably if you don't understand the conditions under which you learned to give it up. And most people didn't surrender agency because they were weak. They surrendered it because it was adaptive. Let's slow this down. Agency is rarely taken from us in a single moment. It is usually surrendered in relationships, in families, in systems, in environments where belonging matters. Often long before we had language for what was even happening, many people learned early that choice came with consequences, that choosing themselves created discomfort in others, that saying no disrupted stability, that having needs made them difficult, selfish, or unsafe. So they adapted. They became agreeable, capable, low maintenance, responsible. Not because that was who they truly were, but because it worked. And over time, those adaptations hardened into identity. This week is about gently loosening that identity by understanding its origin. Now let's pause here. As you hear this, notice if a version of yourself comes to mind, a role you learned to play in order to keep things stable. Just notice. You don't need a story yet. From a psychological perspective, this is not surprising. Human beings are wired for attachment. Belonging is not optional. So when choice threatens belonging, the nervous system will almost always choose connection over autonomy. That doesn't make you powerless, though. It just makes you human. But when that adaptation continues long after the original environment has changed, agency remains offline, even when it's no longer necessary. This is why many adults feel trapped in situations they could technically leave. Their bodies are still responding to an earlier contract. So this week we reflect, not to break the contract, but to see it clearly. Now let's begin journaling. I'd like you to reflect on the question, where did I learn that choosing myself was risky? If you'd like to pause the video to journal, now would be a good time, or you can come back and write later. Whenever you do, make sure you write slowly. You may think of family dynamics, cultural expectations, early responsibility, or emotional roles that you took on. You don't need to blame anybody, just describe the environment, because context restores compassion. Now, as you write, notice if emotion arises. You may feel sadness, anger, grief, or recognition. That's normal because reflection often brings us into contact with younger parts of ourselves who are doing their very best with limited options. But let's go one layer deeper. Agency is often surrendered through unspoken rules. Rules like don't make things harder, don't need too much, don't disappoint, don't rock the boat. These rules are rarely stated directly. They're absorbed. And once they're internalized, they feel like truth rather than conditioning. Now let's surface them. I'd like you to reflect on the following journaling prompt. What unspoken rules did I learn about choice, needs, or saying no? If you'd like to pause the video to journal, now would be a good time. You may write things like, I learned that saying no made people withdraw. I learned that my needs were inconvenient. I learned that being easy kept me safe. These are not flaws. These are survival strategies. But survival strategies are not meant to be permanent identities. And this is where many people get stuck. They confuse adaptation with truth, and then agency feels like betrayal. Now let's pause again. As you reflect on these rules, notice your body. Is there tightening, a heaviness, or a softening? The body remembers what the mind may have normalized. Another common way agency is surrendered is through emotional responsibility. Many people learned that they were responsible not just for their actions, but for other people's feelings. So choice became complicated because choosing themselves meant someone else might be disappointed, and disappointment felt dangerous. Now let's reflect on that. I'd like you to reflect on the journaling prompt, whose emotions did I learn to manage in order to stay connected? If you'd like to pause the video now, would be a good time. This might include parents, siblings, partners, teams, communities. Managing others' emotions often looks like maturity, but it comes at the cost of agency. Because when you're responsible for everyone else's emotional state, choice disappears. Now let's bring this back into the present. I'd like you to reflect on the question, where in my life do I still act as if those early rules are in place, even when they no longer are? This is not about forcing change. It's about noticing outdated contracts. Many people try to reclaim agency by pushing themselves to act differently, but action without understanding often leads to backlash. The nervous system resists when it feels that belonging is being threatened. Reflection softens that resistance because when you understand why you adapted, you stop attacking yourself for it. And self-compassion restores agency more reliably than force ever could. Now, let's continue journaling. I'd like you to take a moment to reflect on the question, what does my system believe would happen if I fully choose myself today? Feel free to pause the video to journal. As you write, make sure you're being honest. Common answers include, I would be rejected, I would be alone, I would lose stability, I would hurt people. These beliefs are not irrational. They were once protective, but they may no longer be accurate. Reflection helps you distinguish past danger from present reality, and that distinction is essential. Now, I want to normalize something important. As agency begins to return, many people feel guilt. Guilt for wanting more choice, guilt for questioning roles, guilt for outgrowing identities that once defined them. This guilt does not mean you're doing something wrong. It often means you're breaking an old agreement, and old agreements deserve to be acknowledged, not obeyed blindly. Now let's close with one final reflection practice for this week. Each day this week, I'd like you to ask yourself one question. Where did I act from obligation today? And where did I act from choice? You don't need to change the ratio, just notice, because awareness loosens identification. And once you can see obligation operating, you are no longer fully inside it. And this is how agency returns, not through rebellion, but through understanding. Next week, we will move into realignment and practice, how to choose gently without destabilizing your life. But for now, let reflection do its work. Seeing clearly is already a form of choice, and that choice matters.